After the meal, we talked about loving kindness, Metta, the intention of unconditional, non-judgmental goodwill to all beings, whosoever, wishing them to be well, wishing them to be healthy, to be strong, to be long-lived, wishing them to be happy, wishing them to develop loving kindness themselves, wishing them to realize freedom, enlightenment, nibbana, without any deal-making, no conditions. It doesn't matter whether they are attractive or unattractive, beautiful or ugly. It doesn't matter whether they like us or they don't like us. It doesn't matter whether they respond to our metta or whether they just ignore it or even respond with hostility. Now, that is the idea. Without distinction, without discrimination, whether they are the same ethnic background or race as we are, whether they are from a different background, they speak the same language, whether the same class or social group, whatever their education, high IQ, stupid, professor, uneducated, it is all irrelevant for loving kindness. We try to make it boundless and Appamañña-Vihāras, a boundless, limitless, unrestricted dwelling place for the mind, an abode for our mind that has no limitations or restrictions. Everyone the same, without demanding anything. It's not like I wish you well if you also like me back. I wish you well if you are friendly to me. Nothing wrong about being mutually friendly or kind, but this is not a condition for loving kindness if we practice it as intended. So non-judgmental wishing well, a wishing well where we don't have to bring any conditions in. We don't have to qualify for that, which is very important, as we have to practice loving kindness to ourselves. In particular to ourselves, I think many people, they are aware of shortcomings in themselves. They may remember things where they have messed up, made major mistakes, things where they feel guilty, or things that cause them low self-esteem. Fortunately, in terms of loving kindness to ourselves, that doesn't matter at all, because it's unconditional, it's non-judgmental. So whether we are pure like Venerable Sariputta, or whether we are a really difficult person, or whether we are someone like Angulimala, even a mass murderer, in terms of loving kindness, that doesn't matter at all. It doesn't mean if we love someone who acts unskillfully, that we are condoning that or supporting it or encouraging it. Quite the contrary. We should be, even if we have loving kindness, we should be aware if something is unwholesome or unbeneficial. And then if we can, we would do something to change it. But that is one thing, the awareness and understanding what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what behavior is beneficial or unbeneficial. And a different thing is wishing someone well. And the wishing well is independent from whether they act skillful or unskillful, whether they are grumpy or friendly. And the same applies to us. So sure enough, if we make mistakes, and once we see and understand that, we make an effort to improve ourselves. But our basic loving kindness, the wishing well to ourselves, shouldn't be affected by what we have done wrong or not, what we have messed up or what we did fine. It's not meant, loving kindness is not a reward for good behavior. It's not withdrawn for bad behavior. It's not that kind of love. Sometimes like maybe a parent or a child, if you're a good boy, we love you a lot, but not otherwise. It's not like that. So we should have unconditional loving kindness to ourselves, and even if we have mistakes, and even if we fail to improve them or not making good progress in improving them, that is one thing. The other thing is that our loving kindness should be unconditional. Warts and all, whatever we have done or not done, we try to have unconditional loving kindness to ourselves. To make it really Appamañña, boundless, limitless, unrestricted. And if we really try to develop loving kindness, then it's a good idea to bring in the other 3 Brahmavihāras. The Brahmavihāra means a divine abiding for the mind, a divine abode, to live in Brahmaloka, in one's own heart, so to speak. All 4 are called Appamañña-Vihāras, the limitless abidings for the mind. And they work particularly well if they use together, if we develop all 4 of them. The second one after loving kindness is Karuṇā, compassion, which is the intention, may you be free from suffering, may you be free from pain, may you be free from problems, may you be free from trouble. So we can see this actually quite closely related to loving kindness, and sometimes may not even be so easy to see what is exactly the difference there. Of course, if I wish someone well, if I wish someone to be happy, in a sense it also includes that I wish them to be free from pain and suffering and trouble. However, in practice we can feel in a different flavor. One thing I like in particular about Karuna, about compassion, that it's still closer to dukkha, to suffering, which to my mind makes it a little bit easier to combine compassion and insight meditation than combining loving kindness and insight meditation. I mean, that may be different for you, and it's just how my own mind works. But if we practice compassion, it usually also includes empathy, at least to get it going, being aware what is the suffering, what is the trouble of another being. Only if we have some awareness of the suffering of others can we really generate the intention for them to be free from that. Then once I have a fairly good awareness of suffering, then it's also easier if I want to kind of switch over to contemplate, say, Four Noble Truths, the cause of suffering. I find that easier than coming from loving kindness. Now the third one is Muditā Sympathetic Joy, rejoicing in another being's happiness, rejoicing in another being's wholesome success. If someone has never been on a retreat and then they booked and they go for a retreat, they have the courage, and then they're really happy when they come out and really move their meditation along and deepen their understanding, and then you feel so happy for them, that they are happy and that they make progress in the Dhamma, that they get good meditation, that they develop insight, and you feel happy about that. That would be a classic example of loving kindness, of mudita, of sympathetic joy. not always as easy as it sounds. And if you're sitting there and you feel fidgety and you can't sit still anymore and your mind is unruly, and someone sits in front of you like a walk for hours, what do you feel? Do you rejoice in there? Or is there some envy coming up? It's good to check that out. The mudita is rejoicing in another person's wholesome success. If you can't rejoice in unwholesome actions, if someone always wanted to take revenge and then they finally succeed in really harming someone out of revenge, that is a success where it's impossible to feel mudita. Can only be for things which are somewhat wholesome in some way at least. And the fourth Brahmavihāra is Upekkhā Equanimity. That is the letting go of liking and disliking. Neither liking nor disliking. Whether it's something beautiful or painful, whether we have pleasant feelings when we meet a person, or whether someone feels creepy to us or unpleasant and gives us a very unpleasant feeling, whether the food is very agreeable or whether we find it yucky. The Upekkha means to let go of all liking, let go of all disliking, not just neutral, neither liking nor disliking. And if we want to make good progress there, and it's very helpful to use all four of them. For example, we can wisely decide which of the four to apply, depending on the external situation. For example, if you see someone gets diagnosed with some really nasty disease, what is an easy one to... Would it be natural to develop mudita now, sympathetic joy? Not really. No. If someone just gets cured from a bad disease, or they go for a checkup because they suspect some advanced cancer and turns out it's only a completely benign cyst or something, now that would be a good one for mudita. But if someone is in real pain or real big problem, then Karuna is quite easy. It's quite natural. The wishing them to be cured from that sickness, wishing them to have minimum pain, to be free from that pain. So if we encounter intense or abject suffering, I think mudita is almost like a little miracle, how we can turn our mind around into something wholesome and uplifting. I personally find it not easy. You can also practice loving kindness for sure. If someone gets diagnosed with a nasty disease, you can practice loving kindness. Maybe be well, maybe be happy. I personally find Karuna easier in that situation. It just works better for me. I can generate the intention to be free from suffering more easily in that situation than the intention may you be well and happy. On the other hand, if someone maybe starts their new job and they're so happy that they have a new job, and with their first income from the new job, now they make a major donation to some monastery, practicing generosity. What is a good response to that? Upekkhā, neither liking nor disliking it. It's not exactly wrong, no, Upekkhā is not wrong, but what would be a natural one? Mudita. This is obviously double whammy of success. Now they got their job they always aspire to, and assuming that that job is wholesome. if they're so happy that they're finally in the special forces and can join the Ukraine war, then it would be difficult to have mudita for that. But if it's a wholesome, good job, and then on top of that, they're using their first income to make an act of generosity, then very easy and natural that you feel happy for them and that you wish them that this success will continue, that they will further develop their generosity, that they will keep their job and get further promoted and can use their job to work for the welfare and benefit of other beings, and then you generate that happiness. The metta is, I think, fairly neutral, and one can use it in many, many situations. Can't think of an example where metta is, in terms of external situation, is in particular called for. Although I think it's usually easier if some things are going smoothly. I think then metta was particularly easy, at least for my mind. And Upekkha, and that is a good one to apply. For example, maybe you can't change something, but you feel really convinced if this party is going to win in the next election, it will be all so much better. And then the other party wins in the election. Now you're so upset and some policies are implemented which you totally disagree with. In that situation, of course, the metta is not wrong, or karuna, but I find that is a good one to apply in upekkha. Somewhat limited what we can do. If a government wins a certain election and then they implement policies, there's a limited influence we have on that, or what we can do about it. And we will generally encounter many things, even with the best will, in which we can't change. And then upekkha can often be a good one. Neither liking it, neither disliking it, so that at least these external events which we are unable to influence, and even if they are maybe unwholesome, even if they are very unpleasant for us and others, can have equanimity. Tillies lose the game, the play for the third place. Upekkha, neither liking nor disliking. But that is in terms of the external situation. We can also decide on which of the four Brahmavihāras is the best, depending on our internal situation. The Buddha recommended them often as a direct antidote, a kind of anti-venom, a medicine for a particular affliction of our mind. And we can choose to practice one of the four, depending on which unwholesome quality is just rearing its ugly head in our heart, so to speak. For example, if you don't get the promotion in your job, but someone else gets a promotion. In particular, maybe this other person gets the promotion because they are just incredibly smart and better educated, and willing to put in more hours and work harder. And little miracle that is actually really acknowledged and recognized, and that person gets a promotion. And now we feel somehow very miserable about that. What could be the reason that there's this unpleasant feeling in our heart that the person who's very capable gets a promotion and me not? How do we call that? Envy, not jealousy, envy. That is the defilement of envy maybe arising in our heart. And if someone else is more successful than we. If someone else gets something, someone else wins the lotto, someone else is really lucky or whatever. And which Brahmavihāra is a direct opposite of envy? Muditā, the sympathetic joy. As the most direct, immediate medicine, anti-venom, antidote to counter envy. So whenever we notice envy arising in our mind, we can try to develop the opposing quality of mudita, of sympathetic joy, rejoicing in others' success. However, for this one, the Buddha actually mentioned two. There's another quality in Pali, arati, discontent. Being discontent. It can particularly happen for monks and nuns, discontent with the holy life, too much one has to let go of. It can happen if we meditate more, if we increase our meditation practice, if we go on a retreat. Great for the first couple of days, but after some time there may be discontent arising because no entertainments, no food, no sensual indulgences, and all this, and over time the discontent may arise. It's quite a dangerous defilement, although it can be quite subtle and can sneak in a very subtle way. And the Buddha also pointed out mudita, sympathetic joy, as an excellent way of overcoming the discontent. Whenever I'm a little bit grumpy, unhappy, unmotivated, discontent, unsatisfied, even if my own situation is not so nice and it's difficult to find something very enjoyable or uplifting in the particular situation, I can always rejoice with the Buddha's great qualities. I can always rejoice in some successes in the spiritual great practice that other people are doing, have done, reading a biography of these great Kuba Ajahns, that's a good one. And the biographies of the early disciples, or their gathas, the verses they have left behind, and then this great mudita arises about these amazing beings and how they express their Dhamma understanding, how they express their understanding of their practice, their dedication to their practice in beautiful verse. Great mudita comes up. So mudita is great whenever discontent is overwhelming our heart or in danger of overwhelming our heart. Someone who's really difficult, has caused you so much headache, has caused you quite a bit of harm and damage. And now some misfortune happens to them. They have a car crash, maybe they're not injured much or anything, but their car is totaled. And you feel some strange, joyful feeling arising in your heart. Someone is, it sounds very mean, but if we analyze our mind, if you have really mindfulness, so many jokes now are working on that whole principle. The most simple cartoon, someone walking along, a little flower pot falls on their head, ha ha ha. There's a lot of humor that works on that. How would we call that? Yeah, Schadenfreude. You can call it maybe in a gleeful gloating in someone's misfortune. I can also call it cruelty. The cruelty is usually stronger in English, but it has this aspect. The cruelty is basically that we take delight in someone's misfortune. If it's only on a lighter level, I may call it gloating, gleeful gloating, or Schadenfreude. But it's already getting close to cruelty. We can see in the cruelty something different from anger. Being angry is not quite the same like outright taking delight in someone else's harm and misery. So if any of that arises in our heart, which of the Brahmavihāras is a direct antidote? Compassion, Karuna, wishing the other person to be free from suffering, not gloating about it, but being free from it. If I get somehow irritated, someone is saying things I don't like, I have this anger arising, this irritation. What is a classic antidote? The Metta. The Metta is a direct opposite of anger and ill will. I just can't stand that person. That's unbearable. This is a Metta, loving kindness. Wishing them well, wishing them to be happy. A direct opposite of anger and ill will. And Upekkha, I believe, can be very beneficial if we notice the strong liking, strong disliking. We're getting pushed here, there, liking, disliking, whatever it is. Now that one is also an interesting one, I would say. The other three are closer to each other, whereas Upekkhā is somewhat different, because usually it requires insight. Requires using wisdom and contemplation, investigation. It requires to see with wisdom, investigate with wisdom, to let go. It's not so easy to just focus on a particular feeling, emotion, and make it stronger in a sense of samadhi, like loving kindness, like sympathetic joy, like Karuna, but it usually requires to contemplate that the pleasant feeling which we experience is impermanent. So what's the point of being so, liking it so much? Once we see that the feeling is impermanent, that the sense contact or the external sense object which has caused that pleasant feeling to arise is also impermanent, that will reduce the liking then. Can also contemplate that the liking itself is impermanent. Or we like it. You eat maybe your favorite food. If someone serves you your favorite food 3 times a day, will it be your favorite food after 1 year? I want to see that. It will not work. So even the liking is impermanent. The same with the disliking. Disliking usually comes if you have an unpleasant feeling, a painful feeling. It's not so many people who like migraine or backache, isn't it? In fact, if you say that we don't like a person, then what we often really don't like is the feeling we have when we see or hear or encounter that person. It's actually silly to direct that to. It's not the point. It's not the person. It's usually when that person comes, or we see them, or they say something, then we feel an unpleasant feeling. So we can go right to the feeling and contemplate that. We can also contemplate the person. No person is going to live forever. No feeling is going to last forever. So what's the point of getting worked up? And even if we do get worked up and there's a strong disliking to the pain, to the unpleasant feeling, that also doesn't last. Now once the pain goes, the liking and the disliking will also go. So what's the point in letting go of liking and disliking and staying even, staying centered, staying neither liking nor disliking? And suddenly the other Brahmavihāras are so much easier. Because what's the reason that we don't have metta for a person? Well, we dislike them so much. And if this liking, disliking is taken away, the Dhamma practice becomes just so easy. Contemplation becomes so easy. Usually we can't see things as they truly are because we're constantly swayed by this liking and disliking. The moment we can let that go through insight and impermanence, we can see things as they truly are and unbiased. So that is a good application for Upekkha. And already past 5, I think I should leave it with these remarks about bringing all 4 Brahmavihāras together in our practice, using them all and applying them skillfully, depending on the external situation. In some situations, like someone suffering a lot, then Karuna is quite useful, using wisely which one fits the best in terms of the external situation, using wisely which one fits the best sometimes for the internal situation, which defilement do I want to conquer, using it like a medicine. And then applying them all at the right and most effective moment and time and situation. Still should, already 5, but I should give an opportunity if anything anyone likes to ask or... Yes?
Just now when Nathan mentioned when some misfortune befalls another person, sometimes we are not conscious. We can bring in something like karma has got him and somehow it's okay. But deep down there is actually the cruelty and ill will towards that person that we are not
Yes.
aware of. And I just felt that was something that I've heard before. Karma's got them, so somehow it's okay. But it's not okay.
I totally agree. Some people misuse the teaching of karma. The idea of the understanding and the teaching of karma is not to use that as your own fault. So I don't have to have karuna because this is your own fault, it's your karma. This is really kind of misusing the teaching. It's not meant like that. Of course, if someone experiences misfortune, there will be karmic causes for it. That basic truth is correct. But it doesn't mean that we should use this as an argument to not have karuna or not to have metta. Now you can just as well say, no, there must be some karmic cause that may even further increase your karuna, that this person has made bad karma in the past, and then that hopefully not more stuff will come up, and hopefully they're not making bad karma now. Hopefully they will act skillfully and experience the joy and happiness for a long time. Exactly, yeah. The karma is a bitch, as they say, that goes a little bit in that direction. Although in some ways I'm quite happy if you read that in Western culture. It is, I think, very much accepted now, and at least it shows that even in non-Buddhist environment, that people have some idea that if you do bad things, you may end up with pain and suffering. In that sense, this is good, but one should never use that to diminish one's compassion or loving kindness to someone who experiences hardship. It should never, also in a practical sense, it should never demotivate us from helping that person. It's just a bad karma, so why should I help them? No. Because if you help them, that's your good karma, and if you help them, that is also indicating they have some good karma.
I think the common word they tend to use is serve themselves, right?
Yes, yes. Exactly. So never use karma to hide the subtle forms of cruelty and gloating. Yes?
I notice with pretty much all the Brahmavihāras, they have a sort of positive experiential aspect to them. But with equanimity, does that have the same sort of positive experience, or is it more neutral?
That's a good question. As someone asks, one can usually notice quite quickly if we develop loving kindness or if we develop mudita. Very easily you notice and it feels really good. How about equanimity? if you develop equanimity, it tends to be accompanied, at least in terms of a mental feeling, the mental aspect, with a neutral feeling. We may still have no physical pain. For example, one has got a strong physical pain, and if you develop now equanimity, that doesn't mean the physical pain goes away. There can still be physical pain. But normally, if we have physical pain and no equanimity, then we usually also have a lot of mental pain, because we want to get rid of it and we can't get rid of it. And this mental pain, if you really practice equanimity and you let go of liking and disliking, then the tendency is that it moves towards neutral. And obviously in the neutral, for most people, may not be as enjoyable as pleasant. However, if we look at the 4 jhanas, where both pleasure and equanimity reaches their peak, in second jhana, rapture reaches a peak, in third jhana, sukha, bliss reaches a peak. Can't have no more bliss than in third jhana. Can't have stronger rapture than in second jhana. And in fourth jhana, equanimity reaches its peak, which means that the person will have a completely neutral feeling, mentally at least. And in jhana they wouldn't notice physically anyhow. But that is actually superior. So for someone with a deeper understanding, they would class the neutral feeling of the genuine Upekkha as a higher happiness, in inverted comma, than the rapture and the bliss even. But I agree with you that for most people, they will like the pleasant feeling which you usually have conjoined with loving kindness and sympathetic joy. They will find that more gratifying. And to really appreciate a neutral feeling that requires a deeper Dhamma understanding.
I guess some people might sometimes confuse equanimity with apathy if you go too far one way.
Yes. Yes, that is another danger, and it's very easy to mistake equanimity for apathy or carelessness, or I just don't bother, not my problem, I don't care. But that is a kind of equanimity conjoined with ignorance and delusion, without no real understanding. The real equanimity is defined as arising from insight and understanding of impermanence. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. An interesting one is Karuna. I think it's not quite as easy to feel pleasant as Metta and Mudita. But I find if one goes really for Karuna, it can be a very, very uplifting emotion actually, but with a different flavor from Metta. Okay, thank you for your patience and interest.